number of victims of the continuing Israeli aggression on Gaza rises to 7 dead and scores wounded. The Syrian Arab Army units continue to crush the terrorists in their hideouts. And President Nejad says that national understanding among the Syrians is fundamental to a permanent solution to the crisis. Good afternoon, welcome to our news bulletin. I'm Dania Nizam. Terrorists yesterday launched a locally made missile at a residential building in George Khoury Square in Damascus, causing injury to 2 women and damage to the building. The missile was launched by terrorists at a building of 4 floors and caused damage to 3 flats in the building. A source at the French hospital said that the 2 wounded girls, one of them who was seriously wounded, were given first aid. Meanwhile, terrorists detonated a car bomb in Defishok neighborhood in Damascus, causing a number of injuries among the citizens and passers-by. The terrorist bombing caused injury to 9 citizens, in addition to material damage to the site of the explosion.
Actually, I do not remember anything except the sound of an explosion. Then everything in the house was falling, and the neighbors were screaming. So really, I felt nothing but darkness and smoke.
We have been praying 2 years. Praying for peace in Syria to return, and I'm sure it'll return. And I hope these criminals could experience the mother's feelings. Thanks God nothing happened to my children, but what about mothers who had lost their children?
My children love their country. We spent 16 years abroad, and we came back to live in our homeland Syria. I want to ask Hamad of Qatar, is this your freedom? What makes you hurt my girls?
The missile came through the neighbor's balcony, destroyed our 2 closets, and then smashed the wall into our other neighbors. It hit 3 houses.
Those terrorists are targeting the innocent inside their homes.
The Syrian Arab Army units continue their national task of purging several areas from the terrorist groups. They inflicted heavy casualties among them. In the Homs countryside, a unit of our armed forces destroyed a gathering of terrorists near the village of Mahran el-Fawara. The operation also included the destruction of several pickup vehicles carrying machine guns and the death of many terrorists. In Aleppo, the Syrian Arab Army unit killed a number of terrorists in their Afrin garages and destroyed 5 of their vehicles with their arms and ammunition. In Al-Firdos Quarter and Al-Sahur Bridge, our armed forces also killed a group of terrorists and destroyed their vehicles. A unit of the Syrian army clashed with a terrorist group and killed several of them, including one who carried an RPG launcher. Barat Mohammed Sahrij, a construction worker in Aleppo, recalled how terrorist groups forced him to join them before he was able to escape. He witnessed their crimes. He surrendered himself to the authorities, benefiting from the decree of amnesty signed recently by President Bashar al-Assad. He said the terrorists stopped him near a mosque in El-Khalas and forced him to join them for a sum of money. He said the terrorists committed crimes of murder, abduction, rape and looting of houses and cars. Yet they claimed that they were protecting the people. He said that the terrorists came from various countries like Afghanistan, Libya and Tunisia. The American journalist Matthew Van Dyke turned into a terrorist fighter in Aleppo as he had done in Libya. The growing criminal conduct of such terrorists in Syria is increasing our people's rejection of them and condemnation of their crimes.
Under various pretexts, foreign terrorists get involved in violent acts in Syria under the name of jihad or press reporting. The British paper The Guardian exposed a new story in this context. An American called Matthew Van Dyke infiltrated into Aleppo. He was previously captured and imprisoned in Tripoli in Libya. He returned to Baltimore, Maryland towards the end of 2011. He reappeared in Aleppo with armed terrorist groups and claimed that he was taking documentary films about events in Syria. However, facts showed that he offered advice to terrorists about weapons he used in Libya, including anti-aircraft guns and automatic machine guns. The American paper, The New York Times, asserted that the conduct of the terrorists increased the people's rejection of them and condemnation of their crimes of murder in cold blood of military and civilian people with no distinction. This rejection is expected to reduce their ability to shed blood.
Every day we see Arab and foreign jihadists fighting side by side with the terrorist groups in Syria. Two are from Azerbaijan, Zaire Salamov and Ismail Nayak.
Syria has become a magnet attracting world jihadis from various places. The terrorists infiltrate to Syria under the influence of Wahhabi sedition, telling them they were right in their attempt to establish the so-called Islamic Imara. Several Arab and world media reports asserted the existence of these terrorists from Chechnya, Tunisia, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Afghanistan and Pakistan, who were crushed by the Syrian Arab army units in Aleppo. The last comers were these two people from Azerbaijan, Zaire Salamov and Ismailov Nayak Muhammad, who committed murder in cold blood. The terrorist Wahhabis intended to destroy Syria, the country of great civilization, and to turn it into a lawless place ruled by brutal force, supported by the West and the Wahhabi Gulf sheikhs who supplied them with money and weapons.
Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad asserted that the permanent and basic solution of the crisis in Syria is national understanding among the Syrians. After his return from a visit to Indonesia and Vietnam, he said that this solution was also endorsed by the officials of the countries he met during the Indonesia Conference of Democracy in Bali Island. 7 Palestinians were killed and dozens were injured in Israeli strikes on besieged Gaza Strip. The Israeli shelling targeted Al-Shujaiya neighborhood east of the city of Gaza and Al-Najab neighborhood in Khuza town east of Khan Yunis, inflicting heavy material damage and serious injuries among the Palestinian citizens. The Israeli shelling came after the Palestinian resistance men targeted an Israeli military enclave in Al-Zaytun neighborhood east of Gaza Strip. The Israeli TV reported that the rocket, which was fired on the Israeli military vehicle, is the Cornet type, and it led to its complete destruction. The brigades of Abu Ali Mustafa held responsibility for the operation. In Bahrain, the security forces of Al Khalifa continue their crackdowns on the People's Movement, which demands real reforms. The security forces use tear gas to disperse angry demonstrators who gather on the walk of a funeral of a boy killed, crushed by a car belonging to the security forces who were trying to curb the peaceful demonstrations. Bahrain is witnessing a wave of political and social tension as Al Khalifa regime rejects responding to the people's demands of reforms amid Arab and international silence towards the human rights violations against the Bahrainis. In Turkey, thousands of Kurds demonstrated yesterday in the island of Ibn Amr, southeast of the country, in solidarity with the hunger strike which was held for 60 days so far by 700 Kurdish detainees in the Turkish prisons. Turkish police tried to disperse the demonstrators using tear gas and water cannons. Tension escalated in southeast Turkey 2 weeks ago as the detainees' hunger strike was held in its 60 days now after the Turkish army killed dozens of Kurdistan Workers' Party members on the pretext that they were gunmen. And with this we reach the end of our news. For more news you can join our website on syriaonline.sy. And now it's over to our news with Fani.
Good afternoon. The Ministry of Economy and Foreign Trade, in cooperation with the private and public sector, in addition to some NGOs, are working on putting a strategy to encourage small and medium-sized projects in order to increase competitiveness and the added value of commodities and services. The Minister of Economy and Foreign Trade, Dr. Muhammad Dhafar Mhabbak, said that the ministry has taken some procedures to encourage entrepreneurship, so it has formed a committee to facilitate managerial and legislative procedures, pointing out that the ministry is reviewing and simplifying the procedures of companies' registration. He added that the ministry has put a project to activate a financing establishment to fund entrepreneurs. The Directorate of Plant Production in the Ministry of Agriculture affirmed that the quantities marketed to the cotton gins have reached 367.5 thousand tons in all governorates. The ministry highlighted its commitment to facilitate the marketing and delivery procedures in cooperation with all stakeholders, as well as granting the certificates of origin and delivering the cultivated cotton according to the agricultural plan. The ministry has planned to cultivate 190,000 hectares in order to produce 761,000 tons, while about 168,000 hectares have been cultivated, and the total production is expected to reach 524,000 tons of cotton this season. The farmers in Idlib Governorate have started harvesting olive, which would bring economic profit and is considered as a social tradition. Safety and security prevailing once again in many regions of Idlib have contributed in reviving the olive market. Its price has been specified between 40 and 50 Syrian pounds per kilogram, while 180,000 tons of olive are expected to be produced. The olive harvesting season has a social and economic dimension, and it takes more than 3 months to be completed. The director of Damascus Countryside's branch of fuel, Engineer Mansour Taha, affirmed that the branch is committed to providing diesel to the countryside, according to the mechanism adopted by the branch to secure and deliver it to families, and according to the legally allowed amount, which is 250 liters per household, in addition to securing the material in all the gas stations in the countryside. He pointed to the possibility of increasing allocations according to the need of each region. The total cultivated area of sugar beet has reached about 2,765 hectares of the planned area, which is 19,000 hectares, with an implementation rate that reached 15% during the current agricultural season. The plant production director in the Ministry of Agriculture, Engineer Abdel Mu'in Al-Kudmani, affirmed that it was planned to cultivate 7,075 hectares with single embryo sugar beet, while the cultivated area has reached 932 hectares with a 13% implementation rate. The Hasaka branch of the General Establishment of Seeds has distributed 15,380 tons of wheat seeds to the farmers in Al-Hasaka Governorate through 11 outlets. The branch manager's assistant, Engineer Hawish Al-Dhifar, said that the branch currently has more than 55,000 tons of sifted and sterilized wheat that are ready for distribution. Head of China's National Committee for Development and Reform asserted that the government is confident that it would achieve the sought-for economic growth. He also called for the importance of accelerating the economic growth in China because of the heavy population that reaches 1,300,000,000 people. He added that for maintaining economic policy stability, the government started monitoring these policies through some suitable procedures. The 21-carat gold reached 3,800 Syrian pounds per gram in the local market, while the 18-carat gold is at 3,257 Syrian pounds per gram. Whereas the Jewelers Association set the price of the golden coin at 28,900 Syrian pounds, while the 21-carat English coin is at 3,800 Syrian pounds, and the 22-carat is at 32,200 Syrian pounds. And now over to the exchange rates according to the bulletin of the Central Bank of Syria. And with this, we conclude our news. Thank you for watching and goodbye.